Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Low Code Café episode 23. My name is Bogdan Litescu. I am the founder and CEO of Plant and App and DN and Sharp. As some of you probably know, last week we started a new series in our chapter, which is dedicated more towards developers and extending the platform with new functionalities. But before that, which will be in the last part of the webinar, let me give you a brief overview for those of you that are new to this webinar, what this event is about. This is a weekly webinar that we are doing every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Central Time, where we get our community together with our team to discuss updates that are coming in the product, demos, and also learning what happens in the community forums and in the help centers to the lessons that we learn. And finally, it's also the hands-on part where we get to actually build something, and we build 2 or 3 systems so far in the previous editions, in the previous series. And now, as I mentioned, since last webinar, we started extending the platform. And last week, we implemented an action to integrate HubSpot. Today, we'll take a different route and we'll move more towards the front-end part, where we'll extend listings with new templates. All these webinars are recorded and they go to our YouTube channels. So if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to subscribe. We'll post the links in the chat window in a minute. And as I mentioned, we have pretty much the same agenda every time. First, it will be me giving you some community updates, but also other things that we are working on that are coming soon. So you have a big picture of where we're heading. And then we'll get into the product updates, what's coming. And then in the support, we call this from the trenches, in lessons that we learn from support, what our customers are struggling with. And finally, we'll move to the biggest chunk of this webinar, where we do hands-on development. Feel free to engage with us in any way possible, chat, QA, voice, and so on. Good. So I will start first by giving you some community updates. As many of you already know, we opened our company to raise money from anyone, basically, because the investment threshold is very low. So then we have customers, we have partners that already invested and put they own a piece of our company, so we grow together. So this is a very good mechanism to grow big together. So we are already at the 120K that we raised so far. The campaign is still going for another roughly 3 months, and our goal is to get to 500,000. So we still have a bit to go there. We still do outreach to investors. We still have a lot of investors coming to us. So make sure to check it out, send it to your friends, send it to investors that you know that are interested in technology space. That is highly appreciated. Also, some announcements I posted on my LinkedIn and on our company LinkedIn and Facebook profiles. We've taken part in this competition that is probably the biggest in Central and Eastern Europe. The grand finale was last Friday. It was a very good event. We earned 3rd place, and I think I'm very happy with that result, especially considering we are in the enterprise tech space, which is not so good for general investors. So I think it's a very good result for us. And we are happy. It's good PR for us, and it's good arguments to go towards other VCs. You know, it's good recognition. I think the recordings will be made available at some point, and I will share them when they are. But the biggest thing happening with us right now, December 17, is that we've been pre-selected. We are one of the 15 pre-selected startups to pitch at the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. They have a startup, they call it Start Venture Program, and they launched this competition for innovation in the COVID space. You know? And then we have very good stories, and actually just recently I learned a very good story from one of our customers in Scotland. They had to do tests for 1,000 students before they went to winter vacation. So that was a big problem to solve. And in 2 weeks, they were able to build this system that schedules appointments 3 to 5 days apart, and then also make sure that the test center is not overcrowded, and then also handling and delivering the results. So it's impressive what they built in 2 weeks. So I will make that probably the main thing of my pitch. If you know of other COVID-related use cases that have been solved with PlantNapp or DNS Sharp, I would love to talk. Every week since 4 or 5 editions ago, I started doing this part as well, where I show what our customers build with it, what our customers build with PlantNapp in the real world. So looking at today's example, it's about a research institute. And the problem that they wanted to solve is that in healthcare, you have a lot of regulation on medication, but you don't have any regulation for mobile application related to health, right? So a doctor can recommend any application to anyone without any constraints. So what this research institute did, they built a self-assessment system where individuals in these healthcare organizations can go through a series of forms answering various questions related to the app, like if it promotes a political agenda, if it sells something, and so on. And at the end, it produced like some scoring and some risk. And based on that, the healthcare organization decides, do we allow our staff to promote this application or not? But more than this self-assessment use case is something that we see more and more, and also in the sales. And this probably I will cover in a future webinar. But basically in sales, you have these self-assessment forms on the website that people fill in, and after that it gives you like one of those PDFs that tells you, yeah, you are good in this area, but you could be improved in those areas. Contact us to help you, right? So this kind of self-assessment tools, it's a growing use case for PlantNapp. And of course, what's very impressive here is that this system was delivered in just 12 days by one developer. So that shows the power of low-code to solve such problems fast, right? Because low-code, the biggest problem to solve with low-code is knowing what the problem is and knowing what you want as a outcome. Because after that, low-code technology can deliver that really quick. And I announced it last week, but I want to reiterate that we just launched the 30-day trial and it's publicly available. So if you want to check it out before committing to PlantNapp, you can now do so and check if it works for your use case. The feedback that we received so far from our customers is that once you start using PlantNapp, it's hard to go back to using anything else. So I encourage you to try it and send us your feedback. We love especially this initial feedback, that you only get one time. That's the most valuable because you cannot get it afterwards. Cool. So that being said, I'm ready to pass. Give me a second. To pass control to Reza to give us an introduction on what happens with the product.
Can you enable my screen sharing, Bogdan? Or you're sharing still, it says, I think.
I have to stop mine. You should be able to share now.
Okay, so this release 111 is the one we're on right now. We just released 1.10 last week. There was a update to that one. So if you have originally what shipped was 110.49, please do go in and update to 1.10.51. It'll be listed under the hot fixes of the updates section of the app builder. But we're on to 1.11 now. It will be our last release of the year. Couple of major things that are going to come out in this release, new things. The page builder skin, which was shipped with 1.10, is available through add-ons. We've been polishing and tuning that and just making sure it's ready for prime time. So it's come along, it's doing really well, and it'll be officially released in 1.11. It will be our default skin and going forward. We will bring the vertical navigation that you have now as a layout that you can choose within this skin. So you'll have horizontal navigation or vertical, but there will be one kind of go forward skin. And really the page builder is more than just a skin. It has a lot of really good tools built in for being able to edit and manage your site, your pages, what you're working on and building right there within the page that you're on. So it'll slide things in. You can make a workflow, look up a token, copy it, dismiss it out of the way, and paste it right into where you're working. So no need to open a lot of tabs and bounce around. So I've been using it personally a lot the last couple of weeks. I can't go to anything else. It's excellent. So I think you'll find same experience once it hits your hands. Also, we have the new listing module releasing with the calendar template. So this one's really slick, and you point it to pretty much any data source that has a date column available, and you can pick that date column and it will plot those dates out on a calendar. You can go between views of monthly, weekly, daily, that sort of thing. Very much like any type of a scheduling Outlook, Gmail type calendar experience, but writing off of your data. We'll be following that up with a new listing and grid template that's a little more modern and slick looking. Also, the dashboards have in 1.10 got a lot of new capabilities and features. The dashboards really and the KPI tiles are very much ready for prime time, and they do ship with the product. They will be defaultly installed starting in 1.11, and we'll be working on making it really easy to add a dashboard or tiles to your pages. In 1.11, we have, from a token standpoint, there's a couple of new tokens that are coming, just helpers that will help format URLs and emails and different things for you a little easier under the core section, as well as being able to go full screen. Currently, it grows as you type, but when you already have a lot of code or a Razor syntax in there, it's a little bit hard to see everything. So making that push button, you'll be able to go between full screen and back down smaller really easily. That will be coming in this release. We've got cloning abilities and workflows, trying really hard. I know a lot of people are waiting on this one, being able to export and import workflows. So within the app itself that you have, you'll be able to make a push one button click copy of your workflow, and then you can just modify things. But if you want to share workflows between your applications, your environments, things like that, the export and import is going to be a must-have. So it's a bit of a stretch goal for us, but we're working real hard to hit that one. If it doesn't hit 1.11, it'll definitely hit 1.12. Also, as you build and get more and more using the workflows, which I do think is one of the most game-changing features in App Builder and Plant an App that does take it to the next level and really separates it from just doing DNN or DNN Sharp development, you'll see that you're going to make a lot of workflows, and that list gets really big. And a lot of times your workflows kind of go together. They're grouped to different areas of your app and stuff. So wanting to introduce a concept of similar to what you have in tokens, where you can you have a namespace and you can group your tokens up into different functional areas, wanting to give that same capability in workflows. So you can better organize and find and keep your workflows kind of together, the ones that are related and needed. And if you've been doing a lot of work with workflows and the list starts getting to 20, 30, 40 of them, you start running into this. So I think that'll help a lot, having the grouping. Really wanting to make sure that you can access the system logs in App Builder, as well as we're looking at doing a new type of debug action that will write right into a space. So you have that log error action currently. And the debugging logs that I'm talking about here that you can write to currently action-wise, they're going to go to a file on disk, and they go to many different files on disk. We want to bring those in, but that's more system debugging. This form was loading and initializing itself and all kinds of information. But sometimes you're like, when I push this button and I called this workflow, what did I pass into that workflow? Let me write out a debug action just so I can troubleshoot and see what's going on, leave a trail, breadcrumbs for myself. So new kind of action there that will let you just not have to use that logging in the admin logs, but rather just into a debug space, and everything will come in there and you'll be able to access that right from the log section of App Builder. GitHub wise, we've got workflows that'll be going into GitHub now. in 1.11. And then there's some issues and reports of issues. I've seen them myself where certain things are not making it to GitHub, or sometimes GitHub is disconnecting from the repository. So we're working on that and just making sure it's stable and everything's getting over there always, and that it can recover or let you know if there were issues. Also, we are in the process of continuing our DNN 9.8 testing for compatibility with some older versions of DNN Sharp modules, as well as completely removing Telerik and all dependency of Telerik out of DNN 9.8 itself, and then just making sure, like I've been saying the last couple of weeks, we don't think that we have any dependencies on Telerik and haven't for a long time, but just making sure by removing Telerik completely. And so far that's going fine. So I don't think that in 9.9, when DNN does properly purge Telerik out, that there will be any issues here. I think actually I misspoke there. I think it will be DNN 10 where they fully officially remove Telerik and all traces of it out, but we'll be well ahead of that. And then just in general, there's always the support center and community portal, little bug fixes and stability issues and things like that. And so we've got a pretty good laundry list of those. Really looking to exit this year in a really good spot for next year, and planning on some really exciting things, focused particularly heavily on the UI and the look and feel, and making it easier to build, the outward customer-facing side of things that are really good looking and modern, as well as just the developer experience overall that you're having, and making that, next level. And so that's what we want to focus on early next year. And so just kind of getting the product really polished and stable this year as we exit the year. And we're doing a lot of planning right now. I will, in future editions of the Low Code Cafe this year, still be sharing a more forward-looking, proper roadmap with everyone, and would love some feedback on that and make sure we've kind of got our priorities straight, and also just let you know where we're headed so you can plan as well.
Nice progress. We had a question while you were talking, asked if there would be a workflow marketplace on the community portal, and that's certainly something that we're interested in, and kind of love to have your thoughts about whether that's a share kind of a question, or whether people are interested in developing workflows that could be for sale. Just kind of interested to follow up on what that might be. So if you wanted to mention your thoughts, that would be great.
Yeah, whoever asked that, excellent question. And that's really where going with this. I end up speaking with a lot of people and show them some of these workflows or different things that have solved problems. And they're like, great, I just need that. And I want a way to be able to share these things amongst ourselves and as a community with each other and make it very easy. Marketplace wise, always open to that. I think really beyond just the workflow itself. So some of these workflows rely on certain entities that are created.
Right.
A good example of one I do is with logging and being able to have events. I call it like an events pattern, where you can get some really good telemetry and things. And just having your other workflows call this workflow that says, hey, I did this was my output and result. Again, leaving those breadcrumbs behind. Well, you'll need a couple entities to go with that. And so really wanting this to kind of be a package that goes together, even where you can say, almost like I don't want to say a full mini app, but this is a piece of functionality that is powered through workflows. But obviously, sometimes you're going to need data to go with that, and being able to pull not just the workflow in, but the accompanying entities that go with it. So right on, that's definitely where we're headed, and that's the vision, is that as we're building this great stuff, we can share it with each other, and if we can monetize, even better. And so marketplace is on our horizon for apps and different things. I think workflows should be no exception there, especially when they can solve some challenging business problems.
That's great. Good. While you unshare your screen, I'll just mention I took advantage of one-click upgrade this week on my instance, and that works so very slick. So that's great. And I need to install the hotfix. I didn't get that done. This is another episode of redemption. Last week I got into actions with documentations, got it all the way there and couldn't drag it across the finish line. And it turns out that it's important to name things correctly. So just to quickly show you where I was, if I was hoping to have a new action in a new custom action showing up here, and it didn't show up, and I couldn't figure out why. And it was kind of a moment when I took a look at it, because it was really quite simple. These were being defined in the common config actions folder, and we were doing a action that would provide it was the same functionality as an execute actions in the flow section, but it was also going to allow you to document internally what was going on. So simply omitting the .json from the file name seems to have made a pretty big difference there. It's a .json.config action. So if I were to go in here now and to clear the cache and refresh my screen, it'll be interesting. We'll be able to see the functionality that we were trying to add last week. There's this new custom section, and it's an execute actions with documentation. And this action, it still has the actions underneath, but we simply added a documentation section. And you can apply formatting and things like that, and then that'll save with your item. So I find that being able to document internally is useful, at least a little bit more perhaps than what the title is. And so just adding that custom action was a way to get that to happen. So that's the continuation from last week. And today I wanted to just introduce, Reza touched on the idea that we have a calendar template, and that our listing or grid module has the ability to do templating. There's a template engine built in. And so if you wanted to introduce your own template, it's the kind of thing that a developer or a real power user might do. I'm going to show you where those are, and we'll talk a little bit about the durability, meaning if you make a change to a core template, it'll allow that, but it's going to get replaced with your next upgrade because those files get overwritten. But if you create an additional template, a new template, those will not be replaced, so they'll stick around for you. So let's see what you can do with a custom template. I have a listing here, and I'm going to go ahead and go into edit mode. And this has a few columns and lots of buttons on the right. And there's an article, and I'll post a link to it here in a few minutes, on the 1001 things that you can do with DNN Sharp. My compatriot Mihai developed this several years ago to demonstrate that you can easily change the buttons to go to the left by just implementing a new desktop template or new template. So I'm selecting grid left, and just by changing that and choosing this different template, the buttons move on to the left. So the templating engine, it's easy to make a copy of an existing template and then make some modifications to it. And the link that I'll show you, that I will paste, shows you exactly how to do that, where you move the buttons to the left. In terms of just kind of demonstrating, well, what else, how does that work, and what can I do with it? We're going to show two examples of that today. For me, I wanted to think about the possibility of, well, this is a huge and original idea. I'm going to display the buttons underneath. The idea is if you've got a lot of columns and you want to display the columns, and you're okay with having the buttons appear on a separate row, that's what I'm going to implement. So let's see what that looks like, how to do that. I'm going to jump onto my file system, and this is the path, desktop modules, DNN Sharp, action grid, static, and grid views. This is the path where those templates exist, and there's a standard. The ones that ship are the grid, carousel, calendar, listing, and this is the grid left one that I was demonstrating that I did as I worked my way through 1001 things you can do with DNN Sharp. But we're going to create another one. It's going to be based off of a grid, and we'll make the buttons go underneath. The tool that I'm going to use to edit is going to be Visual Studio 2019, and I'm going to run that as an administrator so that it allows me to modify the file system without dealing with any security issues. So I'm going to open a local folder, and I'm going to use that same path that we were just in. So we'll select that path. And so we have these same folders that were there. As I said, we're going to copy from the grid, and we're going to do the exact same thing and implement something called grid button under. So I'm going to paste that same folder, copy of that folder into this folder and call it button under. And I'm going to be using button under here a couple of times in the code, so I'm just going to copy that. Inside the folder, are all the files that are necessary to implement that template, and we're going to be modifying 3 of them: the script.js, the template configuration, and the view HTML. So the first step I'm going to do is just to take care of the wiring. In this one, we have to add the button under text to this ngrid directive. That's one place we change. And then in the template config, I'm going to give it a name. It's going to be grid button under. And in the same way, this HTML directive is going to get modified and have grid button under in it as well. So we'll save that. And then the final wiring thing that needs to happen is that this div name gets changed in the same way, grid button under view. So far, all we've done, we've copied files, we've made these few wiring changes. And if we go back and refresh our definition of the grid, we'll now see that grid button under exists as an option. We can select it. And when we use it, it's going to do exactly the same thing as grid because we didn't change anything. We just wired it up. So now I'm going to go back and make the change, this minor change to move these buttons around. And I say it's a minor change. It is, but it requires kind of studying. There's this in the view HTML. This is where all of this is the template, the view template that gets used to generate your output. And so there's a T head, so there's a table head, and then the table body. And you'll see as you scroll down in here, there's columns there's this drag handle area, tooltip area, and then something about these ngrid buttons. But here's where the columns are, where the let's see, I've gotten lost already here. This is the row that deals with putting all your columns onto the grid. And so the one after it is where all of the buttons, the one that actually renders the buttons. And so I'm going to collapse this whole TD area, this whole cell column. Whoops, now I've moved to a different area. I've collapsed this down so that I can move it easily. And I'm just going to cut it out of there and put it in a new row. And just paste that exact content into a new row. So we've moved it out of one row and into another. And when we refresh, since we're pointing to that new one, now we see that the buttons appear on the next row. Now there's some formatting that would make sense to do to make sure that this TD is appearing in the first column, and it's making it wide, making the first column wide. So fooling with the formatting to ensure that it doesn't force these columns to squeeze. But the whole idea of this one might be, if you don't mind having the buttons below, that you could have more columns and put the buttons underneath. So that covers just kind of the overview of grid templates and the kind of the technique that you start with a start with an existing design is the easiest one that's closest to what you're doing. If you want a different outlook on a grid, then start with that one. If you wanted a different one, a different look at, for example, a listing, then you would start with that one. As we move on to our next segment, I'm going to invite Elena to join us. She's going to demonstrate that you can do find open source type of idea, implement open source ideas like a flip card in a listing format, and what might be involved to make that happen.
Thank you, Dale. Hi, everyone. I wanted to show you today how you can use a custom template of the grid and change it in order to have the layout that you want to. And for that, I already set up an entity which lists right now 6 European capitals. It has a short description, and they have a banner, which is actually a picture with them. And what we are gonna try to do is to change this grid as you see it right now to look
Elena,
something.
Do you want to share your screen?
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. That would be.
We can kind of imagine what's going on, but if you share screen, that'll make it easier.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. So this is the entity I was talking about, the one that contained the data for the European capitals. And what I was saying is that we're going to try and take this view, this grid right here, and make it similar to the one here. So we found a layout that that we liked, and we would like, yeah, when you hover, you can see that there are like 2 sides. We have the picture with the title, and then on the other side there's the description and maybe a button that will redirect you to another page. And this is what we would like to use now, and see how we can use the listing template from our grid and transform it to look like this. In order to do that, I'm gonna look here. In order to do that, I'm gonna follow the steps that you did while creating your custom template, only that I'm gonna use the listing view and not the grid view. So I'm just gonna copy this and rename it. And I will go through the files just like you did and modify the name. So here in the script.js file, I'm gonna add the cards. I'm gonna add a new name. In the configuration file, we're gonna do a few more changes just so that we can simplify a bit things. So we have the script.js file included here, and we have the minified styles CSS file. Since there are multiple files and I would need to change through all of them, we're gonna just use the styles files for this project. So I'm gonna change this to the styles, but you can have whatever file you wish here. And also I'm gonna change the HTML directive here and click on save. And since we're not using the less and min file, I'm just gonna delete them. And now we'll go to the view and change the class for the div right there. Right. Before we continue, I think it would be a good idea just to see how the listing view looks as default and see how we can proceed from there to change this. So we have the we have our grid here. Right now it's set into the grid view, but let's just see. We're gonna select our new one, but no modifications have been made yet, so it's gonna look just as the default one. And let's just see how this looks compared to what we're trying to achieve. All right, so we do have some cards. Actually, these are the items that are retrieved from the database. We have the name, we have the description, we have the banner, so we have the name behind it. And if we look, we can see that this is actually a container, a bigger container, which has included a panel, so a div with a panel heading class. Then we have a body, and then we have a footer, which right now is not very visible. We need to add a button there, an item button. I'm gonna do that just right now.
Yeah, so the buttons normally render in the footer, and you didn't have any buttons, so we're not seeing them.
Yeah, exactly. So let's just do that. Okay, so here is my button. And this is the layout that we have for the listing view, the default layout. And let's see how this compares to what we have here. So here, if we go and look under the HTML, we can also see that there is a big container which has the class flip. So this whole div will be flipped using the CSS transitions properties. And inside this flip div, we have two other ones, one with the class front, which contains the title and the image, and another one with the class back, which is with the description and the button. And this structure is the same for every card here.
So this is the pattern that we get from pure CSS flip card, and we're now going to implement that pattern in our template.
Exactly. So in order to do that, what I think it would be to do best, since we already have these containers, is to get rid of our third container, so the footer here. We can just move the buttons inside the body, so then we'll have two containers, and use the header as the front, and then the body as the back. This would be the plan in order to modify this. And let's do so. Let's start by moving the buttons. I'm gonna go to the HTML file and study a bit the structure here. So this is a bit different than what you had for the grid view. We can see these are the settings for the grid buttons. Then if we go lower, we will find the panel default class div. In order to make it easier and to know what you're searching for, you can use the inspect tool and see what classes are being used. So we identified our big container, so to say. And now we can see the heading, which is here, and also the body, the div with the class panel body, which is here. So this is the one. These are the two ones that I'm going to keep, and I'm searching for the footer, which should be right. Oh, I think I closed it by mistake. Okay. be a bit lower. Ah, here it is, 146, panel footer. What I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna copy everything inside of it. So it will go until line 218. And just go under, if I'm not mistaken, let me check. We have the heading here, and then the body until line 143. Okay, here I'm gonna include in the body the item buttons and just delete the div with the footer class. And let's see how this looks right now. As you can see, I have no more footer background. And now let's see how we can.
So what you've done, you've just moved things from the front. Now you basically have a front area and a back area. And so we've gotten rid of that third extra panel.
Exactly. Now I have the two ones that I need to be modifying. So let's see. We're gonna use the CSS here since it's already built, and the HTML a bit. So we have the class flip that we need to put in our div. Also front and back. And then let's see how that will look. And we'll proceed from there. Also, I'm gonna use, so let's just go a bit through the CSS. You can see the positions. There are some transitions marked here. We have the transforms. So this is basically what's gonna happen for a bit of a text shadow. So this is what makes this magic appear.
So we're just going to use that CSS as it is?
Exactly. We're going to use this so that we can be a bit faster. But first, let's just go on to the remote. Find our heading panel here. And put the class front. Also on the bigger panel, we'll add flip in the class list. And then let's find body. And for all of this to actually work, we need to go into the styles file and add the CSS. I'm just gonna copy paste it. I also have some custom classes that I added so that things will look a bit nicer. This is for the description. I increased the font size and also for the title, but I haven't put these classes actually in the HTML file just yet. So I'm going to do that a bit later on. Let's just see what happens with our grid. Okay, so we have something. We have the effect. The styling is not very good right now. We need to work a bit on this. So major difference would be the background. And we need to add this photo here. And instead of using it in the grid, so you can actually, okay. They were, I couldn't see them. Instead of using them in the grid manage section, we're gonna use it in the view HTML file so that we can all the custom changes will be there. I'm gonna delete this so that we don't have the title there. And this is the property that I want to use, so the banner file name, in order for me to declare that URL for the background image. So I'm gonna keep this, but I'm gonna hide it from the view. And we'll use it in the syntax in a bit. So here, if we go into the view HTML file, we will have under the first item in the, one second here, I want to make sure I'm not doing something right. So in the front, so in the panel heading, we need to have the background image. In order to do that, we can just add a style property here, and one second, I have it saved here just so that things can go a bit easier. So we can just add this, and we'll reference it directly to the folder that we have this saved. And we can use the bind expression to add the file name for each item that we have in the grid. So this is what I've done here.
We've got a style, so this adds the background image to each card on the front.
Exactly. Also, I think we also need to modify a bit the title, because the title is very small right now. It's in a span, and we need to make it bigger. We need to add it in a header. So let's see where the title is. If I'm not mistaken, is this one? Yeah. So we have this here. Here is the title. Let's see if it works.
So this could either be by study or by trial and error.
Right.
If it's a new template that you're designing, there's a little danger of messing things up as you're developing it. All right.
Okay. So
beautiful.
I think I didn't put the right image here for Berlin. So I used larger images, and I don't think he likes that, especially when I'm share screen.
But there it is. There it's coming.
Yes, it's I'm gonna replace this one. But we can see the images. We have the effect, and right now what's left to do is just to add those custom classes that I did, so that we can arrange a bit the title. We can the description, it can be a bit nicer. Also the button, we should have centered it and make it larger perhaps.
But the broad scope you've accomplished. We've gotten a picture, we've gotten a title, we do flip cards. It looks very nice rounded corners. It's very pretty. And after having developed something like that, it's there as an option to use underneath in your list of templates. So you can choose,
right.
Just by applying that template, you get all this behind the scenes work applied.
Exactly. If I want to change to the default template right now, I can do it. So that won't be affected. When I want to use this template, it will already be saved for me and customized. So I can already, I can use it throughout my application. So, and most importantly, you know, it's ready. It's there for you to just use it. Okay. So maybe let's just add those few classes that I missed. So
And while Elena's finishing up that, I'll just remind you, if you have any questions about what you're seeing or comments on what you're seeing, feel free to jump into the chat or the question and answer.
So we do have further. We need to change the button. I mean, we need to add actually a custom class for the button. And that's gonna be a bit lower. Just gonna add it here. So this will actually just give it a larger width and put a bit of margin. Maybe change the Boolean image. I'm not sure you have to. Let's just choose so I think I got lost between the lines for the button class. Let's see. Okay, this is not the right.
Yep, so a little trial and error.
Right, since it's quite a large file, you need to actually be very specific.
Yep, and quite a lot going on in here, but again, as long as you're making a copy and working with it, you can't hurt your system. Reza, you're plugging Photopia. You want to explain that?
Yeah, it's like kind of a free online Photoshop. And so it's really easy just to point it to a picture or upload a picture. And then you can resize, save for the web. So you can take some of these pictures that are maybe a megabyte and get them down to like 30K, still preserving like a good looking quality picture, but then your stuff will load fast. Or maybe you need to resize all the images so that they're of the same dimensions or proportions. Removing backgrounds, so you have transparent backgrounds, that kind of stuff is really easy to do in there. And I use it all the time just for these type of scenarios where I've got a very high resolution image, but I need to display it on the web and I don't want it to take forever to load.
Yep, I appreciate your web tips. I'm a believer in Toby now, the web browser extension. So there's all kinds of great tools, and it's just it's great to have a recommendation to know which ones to invest the time in.
I got to give credit to Bogdan and Toby. That was
all right.
His baby, but yeah, it is excellent.
I just put it on this Photopia. I put it on my Toby.
Okay.
Speaking of the two tools.
Well, good. Well, I think we got, yes, Toby, T-O-B-Y. I use it for Chrome. I don't know if it has for other implementations as well. But it does allow you to share. Yeah, thank you so much. Bogdan. It does allow you to share these your shortcuts between browsers and computers. So it's really quite a nice tool. So we got there,
right?
I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I need to investigate a bit more for the button. I'm not
yeah,
being,
well,
I'm not
but I mean,
able
the rest is details. You did the hard part. So, very good.
Right. So the thing is, you can further improve by adding your custom CSS classes and modifying the CSS file. This is the major thing, and you can have it all in one place. One other, let's say, method that we can use is to actually use the manage from the grid, but having it directly in the template makes it much easier to just use it anywhere else. So this is why I encourage using custom grid templates whenever you're building something. And
Well, yeah, so very good. There's a nice demo comment from Albert. So thank you for doing that, stepping up to do it today. Bogdan, you want to close us out?
Yes, and we have another question, I think, from earlier from Jim. He was asking if you would be able to use the same template technique to format a report for printing. How do you feel about that?
For printing?
Yeah. I think, personally, I think so. And I think much more than this, because what we looked at today is doing the custom UI. But bear in mind that it's also a JavaScript layer. So in fact, you could do a lot more also at the business logic, like doing a total amount per row or for all the rows. Okay? So you can do a lot more than just visuals using this technique. So yes, for printing, reporting, it can be a very powerful technique. And combined with the Reza token, that is even much better.
Yeah, and there's a CSS trick you can put into your CSS file that knows then when it's for media, for printing, and you can have, like, you know, removing different, like the titles and the URLs at the bottom of the page, or just formatting things better for printing, and it would all be in this one template. But when you go to print it, that CSS would kick in and make it look right on paper. Or
very good point, especially the buttons. You don't want to print buttons. Right?
Yeah.
So normally those you'd hide from printing. That's a very good point.
Right.
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed the session today. You get to learn even more tricks of how to make the most of our technology. And as you get deeper and deeper, you can see that there are so many more options to further customize it and reuse. You know, because once you build this template, you can reuse it in other systems, in other web applications. So thanks everyone that prepared this webinar, and thanks everyone that has attended this webinar. I hope it was helpful for you. Please make sure to give us your feedback. That helps us make it better and better every time. Follow our YouTube channel and engage with us in any way. We are happy to help. Thank you for being here, and see you again next week.